Good evening. Nice and loud microphone. How are we doing? My name's Ben. I own our bookshop just next door, and it's an honor to be hosting another one of our virtual, physical events, but with a virtual stream as well. So hello to the audience. Hello there. How you doing? Nice to see you. I say that knowing you can't answer. It's an honor to be hosting such an amazing evening, and we're so chuffed that Bonnier gave us the chance to host such a wonderful author as this. There's a stack load of other events that we've got coming up, notwithstanding the Tring Book Festival, which is coming up in November. There is a guide now that you can pick up, which will be received by anyone who lives locally, Tring and Berkhamsted and surrounding villages. But if you're further afield, as many of the virtual crowd are, you can keep an eye on our website, tringbookfestival.co.uk. Good. Without further ado, can I welcome our two wonderful panelists tonight, Lynda La Plante and Niall Carmichael-Johns. Just to the virtual audience, I will be taking your questions from the Q&A box, so please use the Q&A box. Thank you.
Lovely. Thanks, Ben. So, Lynda, do you know someone in the audience?
I do.
So I just want to welcome you to Tring and to our bookshop. This event is such an honour to have you here. It's such an honour. It's lovely to also be speaking to you in person. Now we're back into face-to-face stuff rather than doing it online, which is lovely, so thank you. Now, I was going to write like a little spiel about you, and then I got the book that we're going to be talking about tonight, The Unholy Murder, and actually what your publisher wrote is perfect. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to read this out quickly, even though everyone here, I'm sure, knows all about you. But I'm going to read it out quickly. I'm going to go through it. So Lynda La Plante was born in Liverpool, trained for the stage at RADA, worked for the National Theatre and RSC before becoming a television actress. She then turned to writing and made her breakthrough in the phenomenally successful TV series Widows, which is amazing. She's written over 30 international novels, all of which being bestsellers, and is the creator of the Anne Travis, Lorraine Page, and Trial and Retribution series. Her original script for the much-acclaimed Prime Suspect won awards from BAFTA, Emmy, British Broadcasting, the Royal Television Society, as well as the 1993 Edgar Allan Poe Award. And it doesn't stop there. Lynda is one of only 3 screenwriters to be made an honorary fellow of the British Film Institute and was awarded the BAFTA Dennis Potter Best Writer Award in 2000, and in 2008, she was awarded the CBE and the Queen's Birthday Honours List for services to literature, drama and charity. And I also want to add to that, you're the only layperson to be made a fellow of the Forensic Society. Oh my God. You've been a bit busy. What a life you've led. It's quite incredible to think you've done all of those achievements so far.
I just think I've been very lucky.
Very talented.
Lucky. Anyone who is able to follow something that they really love doing is lucky. So many people never ever get the light. And I was giving a lecture, funnily enough, at my son's school. And I'd got everything wrong. I thought I was going to be talking to very young children. Instead, there were these extraordinary children that had all got first, entrance into Oxford and God knows what. And I thought, I don't know what I'm going to say, because I'd planned this little story. And so on a hoof, I just said, you're all so lucky because your light's been turned on. And often in life, people's lights don't get turned on. And so I always think I'm lucky because the light hit twice. Once when I was acting, because I loved it. And then as a writer, so I was able to move from acting into writing. And the moment that in Widows, when I was watching, they have, rushes that come in, the dailies, the films. And I'd never actually sat in an edit suite before. And I was in there by myself, and they said, oh, rushes are coming from today, Lynda. Thank you. So I was sitting there, and on the screen, came a scene with Dolly Rawlins and her poodle. And I just started to cry. So the door opened and one of the producers came and he said, "What's the matter? Don't you like it?" I said, "I think it's incredible." I said, "It's exactly as I saw it in my head." I was just so moved. And from that moment, I never ever wanted to be on the other side of the camera acting.
Why did you make the move? Why did you go from acting to writing?
Luck again, you know. No, I was doing a TV series. Do you find this very echoey? I find it very echoey. Is it all right for you? I'm not echoing down your ears, am I? It sounds like a big echo for me. Is it all right, sir? Thank you very much. No, I was doing a TV series with a lovely actress called Jill Gascoigne. She was the star. And I had this part of a mother whose child had got involved with some pornography or something. And so, as a detective, she is talking to me very seriously about my son. And she said to me, "Look, why don't you call me Maggie?" And I said, "Thank you. Why don't you call me Juanita?" So this was in rehearsal. So I said, "Did anybody tell me why I'm called Juanita?" And there was a lot of, "No, I don't know why. No, we'll call the..." And it came back and they said the writer likes the name Juanita.
It is a good name.
Fine. So we go into the studio to record the scene. It's very serious. "Why don't you call me Maggie? Why don't you call me Juanita?" I'm so sorry about that. All right, we're going to go again. Okay, and everybody quiet. Action. "Why don't you call me Maggie? Why don't you call me Juanita?" We never got through the scene, and you then have a director coming and say, "For goodness sake, you know, behave yourselves. You're acting like children." And you go, "I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry." You know, and so I'll go again. And you know, I never got it out. You can even see it, Juanita. And after that, I went up to the editor and I said, "You know something, this script really wasn't very good. Can anybody just write a script?" And he said, "Oh, yes, yes." I said, "Well, what do you do?" He said, "Well, you know, send in your ideas to the script editor, the script department." I said, "What, just like that?" He said, "Yes." So I'm home. Da-da-da-da-da. You know, one I wrote incorrectly, you know, myself a starring role in 3 stories.
Yeah, obviously.
One of them was called Widows. And they called me to say, "Well, thank you very much for submitting these, but unfortunately, we're not interested." And they sent them back, rejection. But someone had written over Widows, "This is brilliant." So again, I rewrote it a bit, just 1 page, and that's called a treatment. And I teach a lot of kids, writers, how to write a treatment. You know, some people are sending in manuscripts. Some people are sending in very complicated stories about the characters. And you want to know, you've got to hit them right between the eyes. What is it you're writing? You know, like a journalist. What grabs the front page? So I wrote this, and I sent it to the right people. I sent it to a company called Euston Films. And Euston Films had done all the crime shows, from Minder to Out to every crime show. And I sent it to the main producer there, a lady called Verity Lambert. And for some obscure reason, I used my married name, Lynda La Plante. The only decent thing I got from my husband, but we don't go on to that. Anyway, I get this message. Would I please go in for a meeting with Verity Lambert? And she was a big noise at that time. She was a brilliant producer. So off I trot. And her secretary came and she said, you're not Lynda La Plante, are you? I said, yes, I am. She said, oh, we've all had a joke. We thought it was a transvestite trucker. So when I walked into Verity, having been in her shows, she went, oh my God, it's you. And I said, yes. She said, well, I don't quite know what to do. I mean, you haven't written anything, have you? No. She said, look, I'll give you a break. Write episode 1. If it's any good, we'll commission all 6. All right? I'm going, yes, fine, thank you. I hadn't actually really understood the word commission. I just hadn't realized what a big deal this was. She was giving me the opportunity for a 6-part, 1-hour series. And it wasn't until I got home that the fear struck. I thought, I don't know how to do this. Yes, I've had all the scripts. I've been doing scripts for years. I've been in every TV show you can think of, always as a prostitute, by the way. When Melvyn Bragg did his show on me and my career, they knitted together all my TV roles. I can't tell you how many times I fell towards a car going, hello, love you, coming my way. Hello, darling. I mean, because I was short, red-haired, from Liverpool, they said prostitute. Anyway, that moment at home, I thought, I don't know what to do. And then I thought, well, go to the source. You've written 4 female wives married to high-powered villains. You're going to have to find them. And you're going to have to find some way to get to know them. And I started off on the easiest, was the prostitutes. And I went to King's Station, King's Road Station, and I went everywhere. And it's not easy going up to a hooker and saying, excuse me, could I have a few words with you? I'm writing, you know, they F off. But I eventually understood and paid for time to talk to them and thought, as an actress, I had been portraying these women, I thought quite brilliantly. Wrong. There was another layer and another layer. And I thought, this is the way I have to work. I have to find the characters. Gosh, I've been going on about this one question for a long time. Sorry.
Your ways to get in.
But sorry, you're eager for me to shut up and ask the next one.
No, it's perfect. From what you're saying, because one of my questions was going to be, what comes first, the plot or the character? So it seems to be the character. But then where does the crime come? At what point do you then find the crime? Because you're so focused on crimes and like you're renowned for having this accuracy with your crimes. Does that then come, is that the next stage after you've got your cast? Do you then put them in a crime?
No.
Or does the crime come as you're going along?
No. The one page selling the series Widows was very, very simple. It was 4 well-known criminals were committing an armed robbery. It went disastrously wrong and they left 4 widows, Dolly Rawlins, Linda Pirelli. And so that was all it was. Mm-hmm. But at the time, they were looking for a female-driven drama. You know, nowadays, you know what they're looking for. It's terribly important to know what people want. You know, if you have a great comedy idea, don't go to a drama producer. If you have a really great documentary, you don't go to, you know, a company that make crime. It's over and over again. You have to learn your profession and be very, very professional. And that's what I learned. And you go, so, you know, big question, how do you find a villain? Where do you find him from? How do you get to a criminal? And I don't know why, but in most film companies and film units, usually in the prop department, there's a bit of a villain. You know, you want a lamp after the show, I can get it to you. And that's where I went, to one of the guys in the prop department that I knew. And I said, can you help me? Do you know any real-time criminals, villains? Ah, yeah, why? What do you want them for?
What do you need?
And when he knew what I wanted, he said yes. And he took me to the famous Thomas à Becket pub, where all the villains, you know, the Crays used to hang out. And he said, so what do you want, heavy duty? I said, yeah. What, like murder? You want a murder? Yes, all right. I'm at the bar with gin and tonic. So he goes, do you remember that big murder where he fed the bodies to the pigs? I had never heard of it. But the actress said, oh yes, I remember that. He said, right, the guy that done it, John, come on over and meet up. So it was like, hello, John. And what I learned from that, keep your face straight when you're being told something and listen, listen, listen. And John, you know, told me stuff. He introduced me to somebody else and somebody else. And am I rabbiting on again?
No, you're leading me on to the next thing.
I'll tell you a very, very funny sequence was one of the villains, big time. He showed me the armed robbery that had happened in Widows, because he'd done it under the bypass. And his name was Terry. Well, that's what I introduced him as. He was rather good looking, blonde, leather. And so I said to the producers and director of Widows, would you like to meet a real heavy duty villain that may have pulled the sort of robbery that features in Widows? Oh, darling, that would be incredible. Yes, oh, God, yes, bring him in. I said, okay, will you come in and just talk to you and you can ask him questions. So he agreed to come in and he was wearing a leather coat which had a very elaborate fur collar. And these really kind of very confident producer, casting director, you know, oh, darling, you just bring him in. Would you like coffee or tea and everything? When I brought him in, they fell into a virtual stupor. You know, you could see them almost clinging to the seat because he had this presence to him. And so I had to do the rabbit, you know. So I said, anyway, Terry, would you show them, you know, how the vehicles and how the robbery would have taken place? And he uncrossed his legs and he went like that into his jacket and they all went because they thought he was coming out with a gun. Instead, he came out with all these little toy cars. And on the desk, he showed them how they did the robbery. And so, you know, I've digressed again, I'm sorry.
No, it's funny though.
I'm sorry, go on, ask another.
Were you not scared? That's it. You're meeting these people, this scary, because my question was going to be about your upbringing, because your books are set in this world. Were you involved in that world? Like, were you brought up in that world? Or was it just intriguing to you?
Intriguing, I wasn't brought up in that world. You know, my mother, I mean, did you write Prime Suspect? Yes, mother. Oh. Oh. Well, you know, if it's on against the football, I won't be watching it. You know, my father thought the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art was, you know, when I said I want to go to audition for RADA, he thought it was a pub. So I had a non-theatrical background, but a very warm, loving family, but with no theatrical interest whatsoever. The only play I'd ever seen was Brownrick's Whitehall Farces. That was my theatrical experience as a child. I mean, God forbid, you know, Shakespeare or anything. No, nothing. And there was also very little music in the house too. But I remember one night, my granny used to live along at the end of a corridor. And it was quite a big old house. And we used to have these loos, you know, those old Victorian loos with the high wood seats and the chain. That was this old house. And I was a wander child. I was always wandering around. Well, my mother said it was just constipation, but I really was wandering around. And one night, I'm on this loo, and I heard this scratching and scratching. And I'm thinking, who's that? Somebody's coming in. Scratch, and then this voice, let me in, let me in. And I'm like, and I ran down the corridor and burst into my granny's room, and she had a little radio on, and she was listening to Wuthering Heights on the radio. It was like, I will never forget that fear. And so then I became, you know, absolutely entranced by the Bronte family. So I was you know, reading. I've digressed again. I'm sorry. I don't know where I'm at.
But you're talking
Ask me another.
You don't keep listening to me. No, it's good. So you've got an active imagination. But what I think we need, let's do a very brief, because this is what we're here to talk about. Your latest bestseller to be, Unholy Murder. Now, I know we don't want to give too much away or talk too much about it, but can you give me the one-liner? Give me your pitch that you would take it into BBC drama.
Well, it's quite hard to give a one-liner pitch,
Okay, give me,
you know, a few lines.
Keep it
But when we can see it around, you know, conversion of churches, convents, and monasteries. But this is quite, you know, public place where the church had been and the convent had been, and it had been bought by private builders, and they were building very luxurious apartments, and there's an area beside it of consecrated ground. They know there have been no bodies there, but the big digger hits what sounds like tin, and eventually it hauls up a coffin. And, you know, instead of immediately thinking, they're going, bloody hell, we'll have to get rid of this. You know, it's going to delay the building. You know, wait till the boss here. So there's a lot of kind of pressure on this coffin. But it's an unusual coffin because it almost looks like tin. And it's got big brass sides to it, handles, and it's big. The reality is, you know, eventually a manager, they're tossing this around, what to do with this coffin. He says, we have to call the police, you know, we've got to do it. So Jane Tennison, who's a little bit piffed about it, has to go to see what's the coffin. When it's opened, the satin lining on the hood underneath the coffin lid has been scratched and torn. The girl inside the coffin is a young skeletoness nun. Was she buried alive because of the scratches on the coffin? So it has to go to have a post-mortem test. But she was alive, but then somebody opened that coffin and slit her throat. Oh, you won't be able to put this down. Who is she? How did she get in the coffin? And, you know, it's a murder.
It's definitely a murder, and it's definitely intriguing. It's really intriguing. Was it fun taking, and I know this is the series of you taking Tennyson back. Was it fun taking her back and going back?
Oh, yeah.
I love the details. There's lots of details about, you know, the era, the clothes. You've obviously spent, and also the tech. Like, let's go into both of those. Like, how was it? Was it fun going back there?
Well, it's very interesting because there was no DNA, no mobile phone, and it was like, you know, old policing. But for me, you know, Jane Tennison, when she walked on in Prime Suspect, became an icon figure. But she was 40-odd years old. And she was a very high rank, Detective Chief Inspector. That's a big top rank. You know, now you see TV shows, you've got an 18-year-old going, hello, Detective Inspector, you go, oh, get off. Because it is a very, very top ranking and prestigious rank for a policewoman, and particularly a policewoman. And how did she get to be the way she was? Where did she get that coldness from? That toughness? How was she able to deal with the discrimination within the force that she had to deal with? Why at that age, after that massively long career, was she still being overlooked? Why did she say, I want to take over this case? You're trying to get into dead men's shoes, and she says, that's the only way I'm going to get in. And that is the reason why I found the young Tennyson so fascinating, because I'm shaping her character. Every book, and this is number 7, every book shapes her, makes her grow, and you're beginning to see eventually how the character portrayed by Dame Helen Mirren became on the screen. And it's, to me, very exciting. So I love it.
She's really good in this book. I love the character, how she's soft, and she falls in love, and she, you know, there's all these other elements to her character, and she also makes mistakes, which I'm quite keen to read in her, because quite often when someone is a protagonist, they're almost perfect, or the mistakes are fundamental and all shuts down. Like, I love that she makes the mistakes. Was that part of your character development, this long character development?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, she gets the leg over the wrong person. Truthfully, though, she does make mistakes. She makes mistakes all the way, and you also see her confidence shattered.
Yeah.
When she was with the Sweeney, she couldn't deal with it, and so she has had, you know, parts of her career where she's failed, and she knows she's failed. And I think it's terribly important that, you know, you watch a woman growing out of mistakes until she becomes hungry, edging towards her late 30s. And when that hunger gets her, you know, there's no stopping her. And that's why I was very, very saddened by the fact that they suddenly made Jane Tennison into an alcoholic in Prime Suspect. My Jane Tennison would never have been an alcoholic. She was going right up to be commander, right at the top. Because she had created an iconic figure for TV and a believable woman in the Metropolitan Police, they used it to draw in women to the Met. And I had had such incredible assistance from the women in the Met Police. I mean, my admiration for them goes tenfold. And so that was why I walked off the Prime Suspect, because I said, look, you want to have a sex life, love life, whatever, go ahead. I'm not deriding the writers that took over from me at all. They were very, very good. But she was not my Jane Tennison. She would have been a big, high-powered commander. And the women I've worked with at the Met, you know, I've seen some of the tough lives they have and some of the damage it does. And the damage sometimes has been very, very moving to me when they've actually admitted something. And I go to these incredible functions where all the old women met police officers, and, you know, an 8-year-old, oh, I was with the craze, darling, at the back of van. And they're wonderful, energized women. And so that's what my Jane Tennison would be, you know, go right to the top. There would be no stopping her. And she would not be using alcohol to get there.
No, you can definitely see that in the character. Something just moving on from that a little bit, something I think that's really apparent, and you're famous for, is your research. Like, you know, you're saying you've interviewed you've spoken to all of these female police officers and where they've gone. It's also down to the actual crimes and the forensic side of it. Is that a side that really interests you? Because I know, as I said at the beginning, you are a fellow of the Forensic Society.
Nothing leaves my pages without the forensic team, police have said, that's right, that's right, that's right. If they say this is wrong, I will rewrite it. I don't take dramatic license. I listen to them. And I've been doing a podcast called Listening to the Dead, and where you can hear me talking to the scientists, and you can actually hear me getting a bit overexcited when they're telling me something that I didn't know. But I mean, they are, to me, the backbone of what I do.
There's I've been listening to that podcast. It's really interesting also that they say everything in such a factual, kind of working kind of way. Like I was listening to one about strangulation.
Yeah.
And I just kind of had the whole while I was making the kids tea. And you're like, oh, I'm not sure if I should be listening to this, but it is so interesting.
Yeah.
It just sucks you in.
And they're so informative, such charming, generous people. Yeah. And it's like, you know, I'm looking at a TV crime series on TV, and I see a body brought in, and then you see, you know, an 18-year-old as detective inspector, and you think that's not right. Comes in and goes, toxicology report has just come in. I know you can't get a toxicology report for at least 3 to 4 weeks. So I always have them here. And learning with the young Jane Tennison is a constant learning curve. When the science came in, for example, little things. In one of the novels, there is a virtual bloodbath on the carpet. And so I'd written, they put the duck boards down, which are the wooden boards, to protect the evidence in the carpet, footprints. And immediately my research said, no, 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 we didn't have duck boards then. I said, well, what did you use? They said, oh, cardboard. You see how we've advanced just on something as simple as a duck board? And so they guide me through every single time I'm heading a crime, you know, blood splattering. You know, I have been in, you know, tests where they're coughing and drinking Ribena to see whether it goes out. And they say, go on, have a go. And you say, oh, yes, very good splattering there. You know, where the knife came in. I mean, you actually forget when, in the old days, you'd have a pathologist looking at a body. Oh, what you're looking for is a 6-inch serrated knife. How did they know it was 6 inches when it's sticking in the body? You know, they don't know, you know, take it out. And the care they take. And, you know, I have been very fortunate, but I consistently say to writers, if you get somebody to give their time to you, then respect them. You know, don't go away and take dramatic license. Respect is very, very important. Just as, you know, I want respect. What I do is a full-time, you know, profession, and I work very hard at it. And when I am fortunate to meet people, you know, be it a prisoner or be it a victim, I do not really write psychological crimes. A lot of female crime writers want to get inside the psychopath's head. I don't want to. I want to catch him. Because I work with victims. And you know, I was listening to something and a mother said, my daughter was murdered 20 years ago. And I still have not released the pain because I'm scared that if I do, I will lose my daughter. She lives with pain to remember her daughter. And sometimes when you're with people who have lost a loved one, the ability to read a crime novel and enjoy it, and enjoy the puzzle, to actually physically think, I know who did it. Wrong. My job is keeping you reading. My job is to keep you interested. The puzzle, and then maybe make you feel emotional, any emotion. But then you go, got him. The end, it's over. But in real crime, it's never over. There is no closure. It lasts until your life ends. You know, you cannot ever take away the pain of a victim. And you know, there's new laws coming out that you cannot purportedly release somebody on parole if they have murdered and refused to disclose the location of the body. They must never be free until they give freedom to the lost parents. Say, where did you bury my daughter, my son, my wife? Where? And if they disclose that, then they can be forwarded for parole.
Is it the emotion of the stories that gets you in there? Is
Yeah.
it this side of it that gets you rather than the actual crime? It's the effect. And that's what you want to write about, the impact.
At the same time, you know, sometimes you're going down a very serious route, and then most bizarre things happen and you have a good laugh. So there has to be some kind of that black humor. And so, and there was I was actually looking for a location for a church. And in Richmond, if you stand in Richmond Park and look down here, there is a steeple on a church that was once a church. And there is a figure of a man, a sculpture on top of the steeple. And when I was there looking at this for a location, I was told the story behind the figure on the steeple, which is still there, you can still see it. And apparently, he was a very, very wealthy man that bought this chapel, converted it into his home, and had a lot of problems with the church and a lot of rows, apparently. But anyway, when he died, his widow asked if he could be buried in the churchyard, and they refused. So she had a sculpture made of her husband on the top of the church, giving the finger and you go, look at that, you know, look at that. It's, you so these things in life, suddenly you have that bizarre, when you're researching something very serious, you know, incredible.
In your writing style, when you're actually at home or wherever you do write your books, do you map out the entire book, or does it come to you as you're writing? Are you the kind of author who has post-it notes, you know how it maps out, you know who's done it, these are your main scenes, and then you write it together? Or do you more like, because lots of authors talk about how the characters talk to them and they kind of lead them through the story. How's your
yeah, well, first off, you know, I build the story completely, and then do the research, and then the characters, even finding the ring of a name, the name has to be right. And so when I've got all that, then I let it roll.
Yeah.
And it doesn't often go off on a tangent. I'm pretty strict, but I do think if there was a camera on me when I'm writing, I could be taken away. Because, you know, I'm talking away to myself, crying, laughing, chattering away. And sometimes, you know, people walk in, I go, no, what? And they go, sorry, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. I said, what do you want? He said, no, nothing, I'll go away. It was Amazon at the door, go ahead. You know, and it's like, I get so involved. And when I had a cataract operation, only I could go do both eyes. So I was blinded. I mean, I won't go into it, but it was horrendous. I was blinded for nearly a year and a half. And when I mean blinded, I mean, I was falling over everywhere. And so I couldn't see the screen and I couldn't write. And so I had commissions to fulfill. And so I had to talk it to a typist. And I was in America working. And a friend of a friend said, oh, I have a very good typist. She said, oh, she's fast. She's been working, I don't know, for a journalist, I think, but she's very, very good, very fast. So this very pleasant woman came. And I said, well, what I'm going to do is talk through the plot with you. Oh, fine, yes. This poor woman, eventually you could see her beginning to tremble as what appeared was this monster
talking, all the characters, doing all the voices. So, oh, get you, you bastard! Smashes him in the face. She turns round, punches him back. Then he gets out of it and she's going, and she said, could you slow down? Could you slow down a bit? And so I said, oh, I'm so sorry. So then I became me. And she said, do you want me tomorrow? This poor woman. But you know, every character, I was doing them all. And eventually, you know, got the book out, but that was a hard slog.
God. With your characters, you do tell us about the names, because you do have some amazing names in your book, like Dolly Rawlings and Tennyson. How do you choose your names? And how do you choose to pick them?
You know, the music, Harry Rawlins, Dolly Rawlings, Linda Pirelli. They've got to be music to you because you're repeating them over and over and over and over. And I was told a very funny story at the BBC about, there was a competition to write a 15-minute film for the BBC. And the man that won the 15-minute film was in actual fact a gypsy living on a camp. And he came in and he was very excited. And they said, well, you've written this wonderful piece about life in the criminal world. Have you got an actor in mind for the leading role? And he said, yes, I want Harry Rawlings. So, you know, you've got Harry Rawlings. That's well, we'll check him out. Thank you very much. So you've got this whole script department and casting department of the BBC, and they go, can't find Harry Rawlings in the spotlight. I don't know, has anybody seen him in acting? He's not an actor, is he? Until somebody suddenly said, wait a minute, isn't he a character in Widows? Harry Rawlings? And so when the writer came in again, they said, Harry Rawlings, the actor you want? He said, yes. He was in Widows with his wife, Dolly. Ah, right. And that's who you want for the leading role? He said, yes. So they contacted the actor and offered him the role, and he agreed. And they said, look, would you mind when you go along to meet the right, that you're Harry Rawlings? And he said, I don't mind, I don't mind. And the day his car drew up onto that campsite was extraordinary, because they'd had a lot of pilfering, a lot of things missing from the makeup department and the costume department. When he walked out of that trailer, everything went quiet. Nobody nicked anything. And it was like, there is life, you know, and you think, I created a character that was so believable. And that sometimes is like a kind of real buzz. I think Anne Mitchell, who portrayed Dolly Rawlings, was a magnificent actress, still is. She's one of my closest friends. I mean, what an actress. I just love it. But you know, one time I got a call from a director. This was She's Out, when Dolly Rawlings came out of prison. And I get a call from a director, said, we've got a bit of a problem. Can you come to the set? And I said, well, what's the problem? And he said, look, I'll tell you when you get here, but it is a problem because we've got the big cavalcade. And the cavalcade was the women on horseback coming up a hill. So you had Dolly Rawlings center on a horse. You had the other women lining up. So they all had to be in line, moving up to the one moment, big long shot. So I said, well, what's the problem? So when I got there, and the director said, well, the actress playing one of the characters has gone up a tree and she won't come down. So I said, what is she doing up a tree? He said, well, she wants to do the stunt herself. And I've said we've got a stunt girl to do that ride up, but she's refusing, so she's gone up a tree and won't come down.
So I said, well, honestly, now this was holding up a huge big shot. And so I went up and I said, "Oi, you want to do the stunt? Come on down, we're waiting for you." Down she came. Thank you very much. Thank you. So now you have the moment with the horses all lined up. So a couple on the outer rim had to be held back. But Anne Mitchell was right there for the center horse. And you hear, everybody stand by, okay? They're coming up. There's one horse coming bum forward. Cut! Go back again. The same actress could not get a horse to ride head first over this hill. Every time, 3 takes, arse forwards. And so eventually she agreed that the stunt rider could take her place. And it's like, you go through all that and you think, what is it about these people up a tree wanting to do the stunt? I mean, this is the madness that goes on in filming. You don't get it when you do a novel because it's all your own.
Thank you so much. I think we've got some questions now.
Yeah, we're going to put questions out to everyone in the audience. And the virtual crowd, please get your questions in. George Edwards asks, which female TV detective do you think is most realistic, apart from Tennyson, of course?
Oh, I loved the Sally Wainwright show with, I can't remember, what was it called? What? Happy Valley.
Oh, yes.
She was terrific in that. Yeah, that was good. That was good. Real, too. Realistic.
Fantastic. And so, audience, do get your questions out your hand up. We've got one over here.
It sounds very much like you come from a screenplay background. How difficult was it transitioning into novel writing? Because it's presumably a different kind of skill completely.
I can't hear what they say.
Transitioning from screenplays into writing novels. How was it to do that transition, starting in screenplays?
Well, the first novel I wrote after doing all the screenplays, because I mean, you can do, you know, novelization of a TV series and you're virtually putting the TV series on a page. Well, the first big novel I wrote was called The Legacy. And if you want to know who I am, who's inside me, the legacy is me. Everything else I've written is a professional writer at work, but the legacy is me. And it was finding what it was like to just write. I'd never known a feeling like it. And I began, what I started off to do was I was very interested in the fact that the Cray twins' father was a Romany gypsy known as a Karanga because he lived in a house. And I started to research, which took me to Wales. And from then on, I mean, it poured out of me. I didn't know how to stop it. Instead of doing the 50s, I was back in 1920 with a Welsh village. And I just kept on writing. I couldn't stop writing. I didn't know how to end it. You know, the pages were spewing out of me. And the publishers were getting a little bit nervous, particularly the editor. And I had a wonderful typist who used to battle with pages and pages coming out of me to correct them. And never said a word. Pages, chapters. And then when she got tired, she'd say, a relative's just passed away. All right, I won't be in for a couple of days. And it was just the relief of not being pressurized with page after page of the spewed writing. I couldn't stop.
So then it went in. You know, eventually, I had to finish it. Oh, I was weeping, killing off people. Oh, it was just terrible. And it went in, and they didn't know what to do with this enormous 2,000-page novel. I mean, it was just like a ton of cement coming in. And they came, and the editor said, Lynda, you know, when people write a novel, they usually have the most maybe 30 characters. I'm a quarter of the way through, and you've got over 80. He said, you open a window and another character comes in, you cross the road and another character comes in. He said, you've got to edit down. It's too long. So I'm going, right, yes, okay. No idea how to edit a novel. And so there were big sessions, and the typist, who had never said a word throughout, just thudded her way through it. One of the editors said, look, you know, you have this Jack Russell. The Jack Russell that during the war and before the war, because I was going First World War, Second World War, listen, I was carrying on, I was pages. And he said, you know, it has a little basket and for the widow, and she puts money in it, and he goes to the butcher's and he gets the sausages and he has to fight off the other dogs to get back with the sausages. And then later on, when the war is on, rationing, there are no sausages, but he's still going to the butcher's shop because it was like a routine. And in the end, he's just left with the strap of the basket in his mouth, going backwards and forwards. She said, that has absolutely nothing to do with any of the book at all. And I think that whole section could be cut. Typist. I don't think so. So, because she'd never spoken, everybody sort of turned away. What? She said, it's the best part of the book. And over again, the learning curve, you know, learn to slash it. But that time writing, and it is a huge book. And it's so big, they had to split it into two. So it's the legacy and the talisman. It's just an enormous book, which eventually does get to the craze, you know, eventually. But
do you think you'll go back to writing that kind of book? Move away from
I'm not allowed to, really.
Oh,
you know.
in your contract?
No, it's not a contract. It's like I've built up a fan base, and that's what they want.
Fair enough.
You know, and this is what my publishers want. But the legacy stands by itself because that's me, and I'm there. You can hear my voice in every page almost, and that I think it's. And I had an American editor from Simon & Schuster in America. And she said, you're Dickens. You know, that's what you are. You're Dickens. I've never read anything like this book. You're a Dickens. And it was so complimentary. And then I got a memo that she'd been fired for alcoholism. And so they were not very pleased with what
And hold on to the compliment though. Hold on to that compliment. Keep that.
Lovely. Let me intervene with the questions coming in. A simple one from Moira Simpson. Which book is on your bedside table at the moment?
The Romanovs, the Life of the Romanovs is on my bedside table. I'm obsessed by it. You know, you go onto YouTube and you can get amazing films with the Russian jewelry. So that, I'm wading through that. I love it.
Nice. Keep the hands coming up from the audience. I've got Abby Fairmont. I was struck by the darkness in this book, the kind of the the storyline is pretty dark, isn't it? It's kind of it's all your worst nightmares. And Abby asks, how do you get your inspiration? And where does that stuff come from?
It's all around you anyway. It's everywhere. Pick up a newspaper, it's there. If you're going to write something, you don't go with the front page because a lot of other people will be doing the front page. Dig. Dig. And it's there. I mean, right now we're inundated with true life crime on TV. It's extraordinary. What am I watching? My £600 life. I don't know why. There's these women, men, eating themselves to death. I mean, I didn't know a body could transform into monsters, literally monsters hanging from them. But the sweetness in their voices, they all have a psychological reason why they're eating themselves to death. And they all sound so sweet, and they all eat, I don't know, very carefully. And you think that food is like poison. So it's, people kind of go, you're watching what?
But it's still interesting. I think I saw a film or a book where they had someone who was eating themselves to death, but it was the mum feeding the child. And so they were murdering their child. And so that's quite an interesting plot. You can find a good plot even in trash TV.
But that's like Munchausen, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
But no, I find them everywhere.
Is Tennyson going to be putting on a lot of weight for the next one?
No, no. But there is a character coming up.
Tracy Wells asked a lovely question. It's something we covered off. We were talking beforehand. Did you find you wrote more during the dreaded lockdown? And you were saying you were actually quite good at getting written word doing.
Yeah, because you're writer writes by yourself. You're all alone. I'm used to being solitary. That means I do have a teenage son lurking somewhere in his den up there. I mean, but no, I write. I love writing. I can't stop. And then sometimes I get, what I quite like is when I've written something and I've had somebody clean it up. That means, spellings and punctuation. Because sometimes when you're writing, and this thing comes up and it goes, did you mean that? You go, what? So I don't like anything on the screen. I don't like any bleeps or things. So I do need somebody to, what I call, correct the spelling. I mean, once, and it was actually one of the widows, and people were laughing because I'd done a whole scene in a pawn shop when somebody was selling a diamond ring, and I'd written the wrong poem, and so I have to be watched a bit. And that is like...
Do you mind being watched a bit? Do you quite like it? Do you like the editing process? Someone coming in and telling you...
No, that's when the scientists are checking stuff. This is after everything.
Okay.
After everything's gone. And then there is that lull when then I get the copy and then I read it. And it's very strange because I get so excited by my own book. I really do. I think this is bloody good. My God, I can't put this down. And you can tell immediately, think, it's sagging. This has got to come up. It's very, very exciting to, I think, learn editing. And it's a process that I learned very well doing so much film for TV. Because you have to learn to cut to the chase, get to the chase. Whereas a novel, you can breathe it. You can expand it. But when you're doing TV, you've got to get that energy level and keep it there and touch it up and touch it up. And that is very, very exciting process. But to learn how to edit, sometimes you will see that you've written and, And then he went, and then he did, and then he did this, and then he go, what are all these hands doing? You know, blah, 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 blah. And it's learned to cut. It's a very, very, very good lesson, learning how to edit your own work.
And I think it's really evident, I think, in Unholy Murder. I think you can tell it's a tight book, the plot ticks along, and it is gripping. So obviously it's worked really well with that. But thank you so much for your amazing answers to all my minimal questions. It was wonderful. Thank you very much. And everyone go out and buy.
Thank you, Neil.
No worry.
For your time too. And thank you all for being so attentive and warm. Thank you.
Fantastic.
And stay safe and keep well. Especially you.
Thank you very much.
So that's the end of the event. There is the small task of picking 3 prize tickets from here. So if I could ask you to select 3 from here.
3?
Yeah. I'll take the first one because that's the main prize. And then there's 2 runners-up prizes. You don't know what you're winning, do you? Does anyone know what they're winning?
It's the Mercedes-Benz.
So, right. Is this, yes, it is, good. So, number 22 wins the big pile of books. Who's got 22? Anyone? Oh, Margaret. If anyone needs more books, it's Margaret. Honestly, Margaret reads more books than anybody from our bookshop. So she's, and then 2 runners-up. So the big pile is this one. Goes to Margaret. 2 runners-up are number 13 and number 11. 13 and do we have 11? Did we find 11 or not? I don't. Oh, you did. Yeah, brilliant. Okay. You know what? I'll believe you. I'll believe you. Listen, thank you so much. So we're not doing a formal signing now. There are obviously signed books have been handed to you beforehand, but so thank you. We can now end. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.